Welcome to The Artist Politic. Today we talk with Julian Priester at Avast Recording. He's a jazz legend, having worked with the who's who of history's best musicians. He tells us some great stories and shares his positive outlook on life and music. Well, Julian Priester, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I was thinking about how to start this interview because there's so much material where to begin. So I'm going to do the thing. This just has to happen for the viewers.
Okay.
Sun Ra, Max Roach, Duke Ellington, John Coltrane, Herbie Hancock, Abbey Lincoln, Muddy Waters, Eddie Henderson, Anthony Braxton, Dave Holland, Philly Joe Jones, Freddie Hubbard, Sam Rivers, Joe Henderson. I could list more. People can go on the internet and figure it out.
Woody Herman.
All right. Yeah, right. Who did I leave off? I know I left people off the list.
Yeah, Lionel Hampton, and it's,
Yep.
Lots of others.
There's lots of. I know. There's lots of others. When you hear that list, what's the first thought that comes to mind?
I'm old.
I thought that might be your answer to that question. Do you have a sense of pride?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes. I've been very, very fortunate to have run into these opportunities. They just came my way.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything extraordinary to bring them. They just happened. And I feel very fortunate to be the victim of.
Yeah. Well, let's rewind a little bit and get a little bit of the story of how you ended up making music with all those people.
Yes.
So take me all the way back.
Okay.
You grew up in Chicago.
I grew up in Chicago. I was the youngest of 6 siblings, one of whom was a avid jazz fan.
Mm-hmm.
He had recordings that he played, and his buddies would come over to the house and listen to music.
Yeah. And
I was impressed by their reactions and how excited they got from just by listening to this music,
And what music was it?
It was bebop.
Yeah.
Charlie Parker, Thelonious Monk,
Mm-hmm.
Dizzy Gillespie. And
yeah.
we also, this is an important element, that we had a piano in our home.
Mm.
And just a few of my siblings did play the piano. So it was natural for me to, since my brother's the jazz fan, when they would hear a passage that they liked, they would take the needle and put it over and play this passage over and over.
Yeah.
And stuck in my ear, and I would go to the piano and find that sound, those sounds on the piano. So that was the beginning.
So as a kid, you're transcribing Charlie Parker without even knowing it.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Maybe not Charlie Parker, but
that's a little fast.
That's a little fast. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And so, but that was the beginning, and my interest in the piano and in the jazz led to my parents giving me formal lessons, piano lessons, that is, and just grew from there. Once I got over the natural inkling to just hear the music and go to the piano and play by ear. And during in the beginning of my piano lessons, that's what I would do in my lesson. I would take it to my cousin, who was also studying the piano, and I'd have her play my lesson, and I would memorize it.
Oh, you're one of those tricky students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Until I got busted.
Uh-huh.
Of course, my piano teacher wasn't dumb.
Right. Yeah.
She tricked me. She asked me to play my lesson, but then she put a different piece of music on the piano.
Uh-huh.
And here I am staring at this music thinking that it was my lesson. I wasn't paying attention.
Right.
And I'm playing my lesson by memory. It was a completely different piece of music.
She got you.
She got me, yeah. Anyway.
Yep.
That was a lesson.
Yeah.
That in itself was a lesson. So that put me on the right path.
Yeah.
And
because you came to be a very good music reader.
Yeah.
And composer and all that.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I had the ear.
Yeah.
I had the ear, and that was a gift, basically.
So Chicago in 1950 is a different place than it is now.
Yeah.
By a long shot.
Yes.
Can you paint a picture of what that was like? Like, what was your neighborhood like? How? I'm assuming, I don't know much about it, but I'm assuming that city was fairly segregated in that time.
Yeah. Oh, yes, it was.
Extremely segregated?
Extremely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So tell me about that.
Oh. We pretty much stayed on the south side of Chicago, where most of the African Americans were living. And gradually we went further south as Caucasians moved further into the suburbs because the African Americans were encroaching on their neighborhoods and buying homes there. But it was a slow process. And as a young kid, I wasn't really thinking too much about segregation or anything like that. I wasn't really, politically aware of those kinds of things.
Sure. Well, because
I imagine
it was just your universe, right? It was just it was just normal,
right,
for you at the time, right? And so your high school was segregated.
My high school was not.
Oh,
wait a minute, no. The high school I went to was DuSable High School on the south side of Chicago, where most African Americans lived.
Yeah.
And so DuSable High School was mostly, what's the word I'm looking for, populated by African Americans. Yeah. And I pretty much had blinders on. I was, I cut most of my other classes and went to the band room, and so I was ignorant about others. It could have been some Caucasian students there, but I wasn't paying attention to that.
Yeah.
The majority of the students at that high school when I was going there were Black. And I don't like that term, but anyway, I used it.
You don't like the term Black?
Black, no.
Yeah, you prefer African American?
I prefer African Americans.
Yeah.
I mean, just the term Black itself, it's a negative. Yeah, it's. I mean, just look at all the references that term is used to describe. It's evil. It's it's bad.
Right.
And it's just used. That term is just used to describe the wrong side. I don't want to. I don't want
dark. There's light. There's negative. There's positive. Yeah. Right.
So anyway.
Yep. All right. Yep.
But what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Yeah. So But to answer your question though, it's mostly African Americans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
If not completely. Yeah. Oh boy.
How long has it been since you held that one?
This. My expression on my face in this photograph pretty much tells the whole story. That fresh in New York, Johnny Griffin, saxophonist from Chicago, was recording for Riverside Records. He introduced me to the vice president of Riverside Records. Orrin Keepnews was his name.
Mm-hmm.
And this album came about as a result of that introduction. Orrin Keepnews is the person who put this group together.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
You're still in disbelief at the giants that those guys are.
Right.
Jimmy Heath,
right,
Tommy Flanagan,
right.
Sam Jones, Elvin Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How fortunate can one be? Their first album.
Not a bad lineup. Not a bad lineup.
Yeah. Wow.
You look so strong and confident on that cover.
On the cover.
And
yeah.
how old were you? 21?
This was in 1960,
60,
so
yeah.
I would be 25-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. The record still sounds great.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. You're a fan?
I'm a fan, yeah.
That's
good.
That's awesome. So, same year. I don't know if these were recorded at the same time, but same release year.
Oh, yeah. This is later.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, boy.
This is a special album.
This is a special album, yeah.
What? Tell me
This
your
was-
thoughts holding that record.
This is a period of education for me. As I think I mentioned earlier that I had no political awareness when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
All I was concerned with playing music,
Mm-hmm.
and loving music. And working with Max opened my eyes to the politics of it, opened my eyes to the state of relationships between races,
Mm-hmm.
and made me aware of these things that I had not given them any thought to. So it was an education. Being with Max Roach was an education.
Yeah. So he was fairly active in the civil rights movement at the time, and
yes,
very aware of
yes,
the climate.
yeah. I recall joining the march for freedom. It was when Patrice Lumumba was assassinated.
Yes.
And Max and Abby and a few others participated in a parade in New York. And I was there. I was also a participant,
Mm-hmm.
And although I was a novice, but
Mm-hmm.
but
Was
it
that kind of one of your first
Yeah.
activism?
right,
Yeah. So you're kind of tagging along with the.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not bad people to be tagging along with.
Right. So it was an education, like I said, and it opened my eyes to a different world that I wasn't really concerned with until I was exposed by, Max exposed me to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is a precious experience.
I got another record for you.
Okay.
So this just has to be part of the pile.
Aha!
It's got to be part of the pile.
Yes. Oh, yes.
So this is John Coltrane, Africa Brass.
Yeah.
You were part of those sessions.
Yes. Wow.
What was it like to be in that room with that man, with that?
It happened in 2 sessions, actually. The first recording session, the arranger, whose name I will not divulge, was so high on drugs that we could not get past the introductions to the songs.
No kidding.
Yeah, he was so high. The count off would be like 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh,
And
man.
that went on and on and on until John just said, "Stop."
Yeah.
Yeah, cancel the session. We'll come back another day with a different. And then that's when he had McCoy, conductor.
Oh, so that's how that came about. Because I know he's got the credit. McCoy Tyner has the credit for arranging and conducting, maybe.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
were the arrangements different, or were they the original arrangers?
Well, no, I don't think they were original arrangers actually.
So
because we never actually heard. I never ever heard.
Couldn't get past the count.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was an experience.
Yeah. Interesting. That's a story you won't find on Wikipedia.
No, you won't find that on Wikipedia. No.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So that record, I've been a student of jazz and Coltrane and, for a long time.
Yes.
And, there's a progression to his music.
Yes.
And from what I can tell, this happens to be a pivotal record for his sound and that quartet.
Yes.
And Impulse being involved in the whole thing.
Right.
But it seems like it's kind of their first big step towards what became more of a spiritual sound for him, more of an open, less chord changes, no more giant steps.
Right.
We're getting into open, right?
Yeah.
Open spiritual land, which he delved into much further in the coming years. But to my ear, this is the first step forward.
Yes.
When you were sitting in those sessions, were you aware of that? Were you like, man, these guys are onto something new?
I was not really paying that much attention to that aspect. I wasn't. I was 100% immersed in the music.
Yeah.
And, my goal was to just be as perfect, play what's being asked for.
Yeah.
And, just live up to the potential. I'm in this room with John Coltrane and McCoy, and also there were other very, very, very talented performers, artists, the jazz artists in there that I had a lot of respect for.
Yeah.
And so in that company, I had to. I had to fit in.
Right. You don't want to be the guy mess up the whole session.
Yeah, right.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, it was a great experience. Yeah.
So yes, that brought you to the Mwandishi band.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. That's the first record of 3 that you guys made.
Yes.
With essentially the same core band, right?
Right. This was before all the electronics.
Right, that one is mostly acoustic.
Mostly acoustic, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then as the 3 albums progressed,
it got more and more.
That's right. Yeah. They make such a beautiful trio of records.
Yeah.
For my taste, I just love them.
Yeah.
And love to hear the progression throughout them.
Yes.
You're looking at the back of the record, which has great pictures of all of you guys.
Yeah.
Looks like in the studio. And underneath all the pictures are all of your taken Swahili names.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Tell me about that. Tell me about that time, where those names came from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jimmy Heath's son was a friend of Herbie's, friend of Buster Williams. And I think he's the one who sowed the seed in the minds of Buster and Herbie about adopting Swahili names. And that was the beginning of this name changing. When Buster Williams and Herbie adopted names, it was pretty natural that the rest of the band would, fall in line there.
Mm.
Billy Hart adopted the name Jabali. I don't recall the translations there.
Mm-hmm.
But all the names are pretty much references to the character of these individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think Herbie's name translates into something like the great composer or something,
Mm-hmm.
something like that.
Mm-hmm. And yours?
Mine, actually, I had to pick my own name because the one they wanted to give me, I didn't like.
Yeah. You rejected it?
Yeah, I rejected it. Oh, yeah. I was new in the band, and I think one of the first engagements was in Vancouver, BC, and we had everybody had suites,
Mm-hmm.
individual suites at the hotel, and in my suite, well, we had kitchens.
Mm-hmm.
I decided to fix breakfast for the band, all right, which I did, and they were so inspired that the meal that I prepared that they wanted to give me the name The Great Cook. Translated into Swahili.
And are you a great cook?
No, by no stretch of imagination.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, so I rejected that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And when they asked me, I said, what do you want then? So I always regarded myself as kind of spiritual, coming from high school, Captain Diet and his positive thinking, modeled after Norman Vincent Peale, his book about the positive thinking. I think the book has a different title. So anyway, for my whole life after high school, I've had sort of a positive approach to everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's had a kind of spiritual tint to it, So I requested that the band call me Spirit Child. So they translated that into Swahili, and Pepo and Toto came out to be my name.
Love it. Yeah. Love it.
So
do people from that time period still use that name?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife still calls me Pepo.
She does?
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. So what was the fuel behind those Swahili names? I'm guessing you guys weren't doing that just for fun.
No.
There was something behind that.
Yeah. To create an image, something that stimulates interest among listeners, It's kind of similar to what Sun Ra was doing, and to get it adds a touch of theatrics, to the show.
Wait, so you're telling me that the Mwandishi band's Swahili Names is a marketing tool? Are you telling me that?
It's a little bit more serious than that. Of course, we didn't regard it as a marketing tool.
Yeah,
we took it seriously.
Yeah. So what were you guys trying to say with that?
Well, it was like a connection to Africa.
Yeah.
Basically, I think that was the main impression that we had.
Yeah.
Trying to put forth the image that there's value, there's something to respect, there's something to be gained by learning about different cultures.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've noticed in America, that's an illness. You know, I mean, it's ingrained in the process. When the Europeans and the Spaniards and the others, quote unquote, discovered America.
Right. That's a whole can of worms.
Yeah, right.
Yep, with you.
So that mindset is still present today.
Yeah.
You know, I discovered it, so it's mine.
Right.
You know, what are you doing here? Although you've been here, you know, some of you have been here before I discovered it, but it's mine.
Yeah.
You know, the whole concept of colonialism it's the problem with that. You know, you just can't go into somebody else's house and say it's mine. You know?
Yeah. And then they did the same thing with African people.
Yeah.
They discovered
that
you can ship them all off somewhere else and make them work for you.
Right.
Yeah. And that is still ingrained in the fabric now, right?
Yes. Yeah. And I'm really hoping that in time, things will settle in the natural place.
What's the natural place?
We have to learn how to get along. Mm. We have to learn how to not abuse our environment. And if we keep going on the same path that we're on now, we won't be here very long.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you made these 3 records.
Yeah.
With that band. And then that disbanded for one reason or another.
Yeah.
And then, luckily it worked out that you made this record.
Right.
Your Love record.
Yes. Inspired by Herbie's. Inspired by the Mwadishi band.
Yes. So if those Herbie records were fueled by that idea of you guys at that time having African pride, like we talked about a minute ago, was Love an extension of that? Or were you shifting the message a little bit?
I think there was a little difference there. I mean, I certainly was not consciously thinking of African pride when in the process of creating this. Yeah.
Tell me about the title.
The title came about as a result of my heartfelt wish and desire for humans to come together and love. You know, love. If you do that, hopefully, I was thinking, you know, you can get the message across.
Yeah.
You don't need anything else. You just love, and everything else will fall in place.
So is love like first love is a verb?
Yeah.
The act of loving love.
Yeah.
I never put that together till now. I'm slow on the uptake.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my purpose of that with that particular title. And I think in its own way, it's made its impression on a few. You know,
Yeah.
yeah,
More than a few.
yeah,
Yeah. That is, you know, it's not, it doesn't have as wide of an audience as the Herbie stuff,
right.
but there are a whole lot of people that appreciate that record for
Yes.
what it is and know
Yes.
the strength of it as
Yes.
a artistic
Yes.
statement.
Yeah. I'm very proud of that.
Yeah.
But you know, I think that's, if not the purpose, is one of the purposes of art. You know, to make people aware. I mean, even though it was, you know, that is beauty, and that's going to have a positive impression on anyone who's open enough to recognize it. Is not damaged by certain things where they close off. A lot of humans are not intellectually prepared because they've been damaged by disappointment or other things that happened in your life where you just shut, maybe for protection reason, you just shut everything out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want to reach out to those people somehow. You know, and I think that music is an excellent vehicle because of its power to communicate emotionally. You know, music can bring tears to your eyes. It can stimulate uncomfortable. It can make a person uncomfortable, and maybe even anger. You know, certain sounds, you know, will startle you, make you feel uncomfortable. You know, to get away.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So turn it off.
Right. 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 Yeah.
So, anyways, that's a precious commodity.
Yeah.
You know, although that's another term that I don't like.
Commodity. As it relates to art.
As it relates to jazz, as it relates to music. Yeah. Because when you capitalism and commodity has been detrimental to my life. You know, as an artist.
Yeah.
As a commodity, jazz has equal value to peanut butter. You know, you put it on the shelf and people just can overlook it. You know.
Right. Right.
A few have grown to like it, and you know they'll go out and purchase some to listen to. But it's such a wonderful thing, you know, a gift. And I would like it to be available to everybody. But in order for that to happen, everybody has to be exposed.
And educated.
Yeah. And as a commodity, it's very unlikely that that's going to happen. Yeah. Because there's a different picture. You know, it's just something, you know, here today, gone tomorrow. Yeah.
You seem lucky enough to have had some amazing mentors and collaborators.
Yes.
Over your career.
Yes.
That you've learned all sorts of things
right.
from music and otherwise.
Yes.
And then in 1979, you came to Seattle and started teaching at Cornish.
Right.
How important was it for you to continue that legacy of mentorship? And how much was that on your mind to kind of bring those lessons with you.
Right. It's very important. I think in order to create an environment where you can freely express yourself in a creative manner, you'll have to have the right circumstances. I'm not talking about physical circumstances. I'm talking about mental and spiritual. And control over your own emotions where you can step aside, step out of your character, knowing that you're free enough to express without hesitation what you feel, what you hear. And if you've gotten rid of all these things going on in your mind, these thoughts and ideas that, I'm going to play this. Oh yeah, I'm going to play that. Premeditation is not what you should be thinking of. And you should be attached to the moment, and whatever sound that comes to your mind, of course it's going to be a musical sound because that's what you're involved with. Whatever musical sound that comes in your mind, you are free enough to express it on your instrument. And those are two different disciplines. Instrument, you have to learn. It's important because without which you won't be able to express.
Right, you need the skill.
Yeah.
There, ready to be in the moment.
Be in the moment. Yeah. And once you've gotten those two things connected, you're all right. You're ready.
Yeah.
And that's the lesson that I try to teach the students at Cornish. It works. It works. I mean, that's proof. I mean, I look at some of the ex-Cornish students. It's there.
It's absolutely there.
Yeah.
We've got a town full of them.
Yeah.
A town full of great jazz people that you have been hands-on with and instilled those creative values and creative building blocks.
Sure. Yeah. That's important. Yeah. And I guess, I mean, at this present moment here, I'm getting a little angsty, realizing that, I don't have too much time left here. I got to figure this out now so I can make the most of it. Make the right decisions, put myself in the right environments where I can be free to continue. Because I don't want to stop. I really don't want to stop.
You don't want to stop creating?
Yeah, I don't want to stop living.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you have left to do?
Oh, there's more. Oh, that's so much more.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're all governed by time, and time is fleeting. And when you look back over your accomplishments and you realize how much time you've wasted, it's like making you want to slap yourself in the face, dummy.
Do you feel like you wasted time?
Oh, yeah.
You've been on over 200 recordings.
Yeah.
I hate to argue with you, but that doesn't sound like wasting time to me.
I've taken advantage of it in a positive way. Some of it, yeah. But there's a whole lot of time where I was idle or distracted. That's another waste.
Yeah. What were you distracted by?
I really should not be saying this, but there's life. Life is complicated.
Yes.
Life is distracting.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, as far as your time is concerned, you know, you can't devote all your time to just one aspect of it because you got
That's
this.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it that was distracting you that you felt was pulling you off track?
You got to go out and work for those 8 hours, and then you come home. You got to spend some time with the family, and including nourishment and, you know, keeping your body clean, and of course you got partners to help with that. You know, your spouse, children, once they get up to a certain age.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all time consuming.
Yeah.
And you can be smart enough where you can make the most of it. You know, and that's really what you got to do.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get mired into the problems that manifest in the process of doing these things that you have to do, you'll find that time slips away and you're not accomplishing very much.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're blowing up, I think. Is that you?
That's me. I'm in the middle of the interview. I'll call you back. That's one of the distractions I was talking about. Yeah.
Appropriately timed. Appropriately timed. Beautiful. Oh, that's great. Oh, man. You've seen a lot of things in your life. You have lived through World War II.
Yeah.
You have lived through segregation.
Yes.
And the repairing of segregation and the civil rights movement.
Right.
And various assassinations.
Right.
And Vietnam. And, you know, a tumultuous time in American history.
Yes.
You saw it all. And now we're in this time in American history. And I need to know from you, what kind of parallels do you see? And what kind of lessons can we learn from that time that you witnessed and apply it to now?
The effect of capitalism on society is damaging. Mm-hmm. And until we recognize that and do what's necessary to correct it, we're going to have problems. So, what's necessary? In my mind, what's necessary is that we figure it out how we can get along with each other first. Mm-hmm. And then once we can figure that out, we can start communicating and exchanging ideas and exchanging thought, materials, whatever is necessary to promote life. Until we come together as a species, we continue to have problems.
Yeah. What's one thing that we can do to just take one step towards shifting all of this mess?
Get rid of Trump. Get rid of Trump. No. No, that was...
That's one of the steps. That's one of the steps.
Yeah, that's a minor step, but... wow. We're so divided now, you know, with all the different religions and, you know, competing religions, and that in itself is a source of a lot of the problems that the human race is undergoing.
Yeah.
And I know this is very far-fetched, but we need to do something about that. Yeah. I mean, we need to come under one umbrella in all aspects of life, and nurture each other, nurture life, not each other, nurture life, and then we all will be nurtured. Okay. And that's my idea. I believe it will work. What I'm have doubts about is whether we can get there. Can we get there?
Get there in time.
Yeah. Is there time?
Right.
Because on the path that we're on, it's not leading in the right direction.
Yeah.
So, let's spread the word.
Spread the word of positive thinking.
Positive thinking, yeah.
Just moving forward.
Moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll spread that word.
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough for sitting and talking with us for so long and imparting so much knowledge, not just here in this room, but you've been a part of my life for a long time. And I appreciate it so much. And I know that, my friends and colleagues appreciate you too and how much you've given us.
Good.
So thank you for that. And thanks for sitting down. Thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure.
Yeah.